Sentimental items can be some of the hardest things in our homes to declutter because we're not just deciding what to do with an object. We're deciding what to do with something that reminds us of a person we love, or a place we've been, or a chapter of our lives that we don't want to forget. So let me say this right up front. This is not a video about getting rid of all your sentimental things. Some things are worth keeping. Some things make us smile every time we see them. And some things tell stories that we want to pass down. Sometimes we're simply not ready to let something go. The problem is that when everything feels sentimental, it can become almost impossible to decide what really matters. So today we're going to make some of those decisions a little easier by looking at them one at a time. The goal isn't to get rid of your memories. The goal is to make room for the things that help you remember them. So here are the 7 rules that will help you decide what to keep and what you're ready to let go of. Rule number 1, find your favorites. When everything in a box feels sentimental, it can be really hard to decide what to let go of. Maybe it's a box of old cards and letters, photographs, vacation souvenirs, concert tickets, or keepsakes from a particular season of your life. Individually, each one seems to hold a little piece of the past, and when everything has a memory attached to it, it can all start to feel equally important. And that can make it hard to see which things are especially meaningful to you. That's where the find your favorites rule comes in. So instead of starting with what can I get rid of, start with which of these are my favorites? If you have a box full of cards and letters, which ones would you actually want to sit down and read again? If you have dozens of souvenirs from your travels, which ones immediately take you back to a particular place? If you have photographs from an important season of your life, which ones tell the story the best? Having fewer sentimental things can actually make the things that you do keep feel more special. Sometimes a boundary can help. Maybe you have one memory box for a certain chapter of your life, or one bin for keepsakes, or one shelf for a collection. The boundary isn't there to tell you how much you're allowed to care about something. It helps you decide what deserves the space the most. And your number doesn't have to be small. This isn't about whittling every meaningful collection down to just 3 things. This rule is about identifying your favorites, not telling you how many you can have. It's about recognizing that you don't necessarily need to keep everything in order to keep what matters most. So here's your challenge for rule number 1. Choose one small collection of sentimental things, a stack of cards, a handful of souvenirs, one small box of keepsakes, and before you think about what you might let go of, pull out your favorites, the things that make you smile, the things that bring back the strongest memories, the things that you'd be the most disappointed to lose. Start by deciding what matters most, then see how you feel about the rest. You may find those decisions are a little easier once you know your favorites are safe. Rule number 2, keep the memory. Sometimes we hold on to an object because getting rid of it feels like we'd be getting rid of something much bigger. It belonged to someone we loved. It reminds us of a place we used to live, or a trip we took, or a friendship, or a season of our lives that mattered to us. And somewhere along the way, the object and the memory can start to feel like the same thing. But they aren't. Our memories don't live inside our things. So a ticket stub doesn't contain the memory of the concert. A souvenir doesn't contain the memory of the vacation. And the key to your first house doesn't contain everything that happened while you lived there. Those experiences are part of your life whether you keep the physical evidence of them or not. And the same is true for the things that connect us with the people that we love. The item is not the person. The item is not the relationship. But when you're struggling with a sentimental item, it can help to separate the thing you're holding from what you're afraid of losing. So if you let go of the concert ticket, will you forget the concert? If you let go of the old key, will you forget the house? If you let go of something that belonged to someone that you loved, will you lose the relationship that you had with that person? Our things can remind us of our memories, but they aren't where our memories live. So here's your challenge for rule number 2. Choose one sentimental object that you've been struggling to make a decision about and ask yourself, what am I afraid I'll actually lose if I let this go? If the answer is the memory, remind yourself where that memory actually lives. It lives in you, not the object. You can keep the memory even if you decide to let the object go. Rule number 3, no strings attached. Some sentimental things are hard to let go of because they came to us through someone else. Someone gave it to us, it belonged to someone in our family, it's been passed down for years, or maybe someone specifically told us, I want you to have this. And suddenly getting rid of the object can feel like we're doing something wrong. That's where the no strings attached rule comes in. Sometimes our belongings come with invisible strings. We're not keeping them because we particularly want them, we're keeping them because we imagine how someone else would feel if we didn't. So maybe your aunt gave you a vase that was very special to her, but it's never been very special to you. Or maybe you inherited a set of dishes because everyone agreed they should stay in the family. Or maybe someone gave you a beautiful gift that simply isn't your taste. A gift has already done its job when it's been given and received. The purpose of a gift is not to become a lifelong obligation. And the same thing goes with inherited things. Sometimes we become the keeper of something simply because somebody else decided that we should be. And before we know it, we're making space in our homes for the wishes of people who don't actually live there. That doesn't mean that family history doesn't matter. It means that sentiment and obligation are not the same thing. You can appreciate that something mattered to someone else without deciding that it has to matter to you in exactly the same way. So here's your challenge for rule number 3. Find one sentimental item that you suspect you may be keeping mostly out of obligation and ask yourself, if I didn't feel guilty, would I keep this? Don't worry about what the answer should be. Just notice what your answer actually is. Because when you can separate genuine sentiment from guilt or obligation, those invisible strings start to loosen. Rule number 4, know the story. Sometimes what makes an object sentimental isn't really the object itself. It's the story that we've attached to it. And every once in a while, it's worth making sure that we actually know what that story is. I learned this one the hard way with an old wooden rolling pin. For years, I believed that my great-grandfather, who was a woodworker, had made it. It was old, it was broken, I certainly wasn't using it, but I carefully packed up that rolling pin and I brought it with me for about 10 different moves because I thought it was a family heirloom. And then finally one day I asked my mom about it. Hey Mom, can you tell me the story again about this rolling pin that my great-grandfather made? She had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. As far as she knew, that rolling pin had never belonged to my great-grandfather. And all of a sudden, what I thought was a family heirloom turned out to be just a cracked piece of wood. Somewhere along the way, I had attached a family story to some random old rolling pin, and then I spent years carefully preserving it because of that story. And apparently, I'm not the only one who's done something like this. After I told that story in another video, one of my viewers told me that she had saved a piece of artwork from her son's elementary school. And years later, when he was in college, she was going through his memory box and she noticed that the artwork had come apart from the construction paper behind it. And underneath was another child's name. She had spent all those years attaching sentimental value to somebody else's kid's elementary school artwork, which is why rule number 4 is know the story. If you're keeping something because of its history, find out what you really know about that history. Whose was it? Where did it come from? Why was it important? And do you actually know that, or have you simply always believed it, like me with the rolling pin? But there's another side to this rule. Sometimes you ask those questions and you discover that the story really is part of your family history. So maybe an object really did belong to your great-grandfather. Maybe there's a wonderful story about how it came into the family. But in that case, don't just preserve the object, preserve the story too. Write down who it belonged to, add a note about why it mattered, put a label on the back, or tuck that information somewhere with the object. Because an heirloom without its story can eventually just become somebody else's mystery object. So here's your challenge for rule number 4. Find one sentimental item that you're keeping because of its history and make sure you actually know the story. And if it is a story worth passing down, write it down. Rule number 5 is digitize, don't drown. Some of the most sentimental things that we own are also some of the most vulnerable because in many cases there's only one copy. Old photographs, photo albums, family movies, VHS tapes, maybe even old letters or other family records. If something happens to them, we might not be able to replace them. And over the years, these things can add up to boxes and boxes of physical media. Digitizing sentimental things can actually do 2 things at once. It can free up physical space and it can help protect the memories that you actually want to preserve. Once those things are digitized, then you have options. You can back them up, you can share them with other family members, you can send copies to people who might enjoy them instead of being the only person responsible for keeping that one copy safe. And I really like that part about digitizing because suddenly those memories aren't just stored, they're shared. And that's really the don't drown part of this rule. You don't have to keep drowning in boxes of old photographs and film reels and VHS tapes and other physical media just because the memories on them are important. But I also don't want you to drown in the project of digitizing all of it. You don't need to scan 40 years worth of photographs this weekend or sit down and convert every home movie yourself. If you have a large collection, this may be one of those projects that's worth getting some help with. There are some services that will do this for you. I've mentioned iMemories before. This video is not sponsored, but you can send iMemories your physical media and they'll digitize it for you. So if the technology part is what feels overwhelming, you don't have to figure that out all by yourself. And you don't necessarily have to digitize every single thing. Maybe you have a pile of photos where you got doubles or triples back in the day when we had to drop off the film rolls at the store to get them developed. And you open it up and realize they're all blurry and you don't remember what they are. You don't have to digitize all of that stuff. Remember rule number 1, find your favorites. Start with the things that matter the most, the photographs that you would be heartbroken to lose, the home movies that your family would love to see again, or the pieces of family history that exist nowhere else. So here's your challenge for rule number 5. Choose one small batch of sentimental media and make a plan to get it digitized. So maybe it's one photo album, or one small handful of photographs, or maybe it's the one home movie that you've been meaning to do something with for years. You're creating another copy of something precious that simply can't be replaced. If you've gotten any value out of this video so far, it would mean the world to me if you would hit that subscribe button so that I can reach more people and help more people. Thank you so much. Let's keep going. Rule number 6 is ask first. Sometimes we hold on to sentimental things because we're not really keeping them for ourselves. We're saving them for someone else. Maybe you have boxes of family photographs that you plan to give your children someday. Or maybe you've saved your grandmother's china for your niece. Maybe there's a piece of furniture or a collection or a family heirloom that you always assumed that someone else in the family would want. And maybe they will. But have you asked them? That's the ask first rule. There's a big difference between saying, I'm saving this for my daughter, and my daughter has told me she wants this. We can have the very best of intentions and still end up storing things for people who don't actually want them. Their homes may be smaller than ours. Their taste may be different. They may already have everything that they need, or they may love the family story without necessarily wanting the object that goes along with it. And none of that means that the object isn't valuable or that the history doesn't matter. It just means that we don't get to decide what will be sentimental to someone else. So instead of guessing, ask. And if there's something that they genuinely want, you might even consider giving it to them now. There can be something really special about passing down a meaningful item while you're still here to tell the story of where it came from and why it mattered and what you remember about it. And plus, you get the pleasure of seeing someone that you love enjoy it. But you may also discover that the things you've been carefully saving aren't things that anyone else wants. And that's useful information too, because now you can make a decision about those things based on what you know instead of what you've been assuming. So here's your challenge for rule number 6. Think of one sentimental item that you've been saving for someone else and ask them if they actually want it. Just ask. And if they do want it, consider giving it to them sooner rather than later. Rule number 7 is the not yet rule. Sometimes you can work through every question we've talked about in this video and still pick up an object and think, I'm just not ready. Maybe it belonged to someone that you lost, or maybe it represents a chapter of your life that still feels very close to your heart. Or maybe you simply don't know what you want to do with it yet, and that's where the not yet rule comes in. You don't have to force yourself to make a decision that you're not ready to make, because sometimes the answer really can be not yet. I learned this after our son died. We had a little dresser that we had planned to use for his baby clothes, and we never got to fill it. And that dresser sat empty in our home for a long time. Eventually, I was able to find a family who needed a dresser, and I was finally ready to let ours go. Finding a meaningful home for it helped me to move through some of that grief, but I couldn't have done that before I was ready. I learned that just like grief is not linear, our readiness to make decisions about our sentimental things is not linear either. So you may be ready to make a decision about one thing and not another, or you may have a day when some decisions feel surprisingly easy, and then another day when you just can't bring yourself to do it. Being ready to let go of one thing doesn't mean you have to let go of everything, and it doesn't mean you have to do it all right now. Not yet doesn't mean you're never going to make a decision, and it doesn't mean that someday you're definitely going to get rid of the item. It simply means you don't know yet, and I think there can be a lot of wisdom in recognizing that. So here's your challenge for rule number 7. If you come across something that you genuinely aren't ready to decide about yet, don't force the decision just for the sake of decluttering. Give yourself permission to say, not yet. You may look at that same object 6 months or a year from now and know that you're finally ready to let it go. Or you may realize that it's something you truly want to keep. You don't have to know the answer today. Not yet is enough for now. Decluttering sentimental things isn't about getting rid of everything. It's about making thoughtful decisions about what you want to carry forward with you. Some things you'll keep, and some things you'll be ready to let go of. And for some things, the answer may still be not yet. These 7 rules can help you make those decisions with a little more clarity and less second guessing. And if this video has made you feel motivated to declutter, don't stop now. I've picked another video for you that will help you keep making progress. I'll meet you there.